Hello everyone!
Hello there!
Even almost 20 years after its release, Star Wars Empire at War remains one of the most played real-time strategy games. Daily, a few thousand players on Steam still launch this classic RTS from LucasArts and Petroglyph. But why is that? How can such an old game still attract more people than many newer titles? If you compare a list of the most played proper RTS titles on Steam, Empire at War currently holds a respectable 6th place, and only Age of Empires 2 and 4 are truly out of reach. Newer titles barely appear in the top 10, even Tempest Rising, which launched with significant praise, isn't drawing in that many players anymore. To truly understand why Empire at War is still performing so well, my GameStar colleague recently reinstalled it and has already sunk over 20 hours into it, and he wrote the script to this video. So why does it still work? Well, the answer is super simple, because even though the graphics and unit control are noticeably dated, it's still a lot of fun. That's mostly due to its good, straightforward game design and the fantastic Star Wars atmosphere, which is created just by the voice acting and the unmistakable soundtrack. However, the main reason Empire at War is still so vibrant today is, of course, the large modding community, which is still hard at work even in 2025. We'll dive into it more at the end of the video, but first, let's take a look at what fundamentally makes this game so special. If you were to characterize Empire at War in simple terms, it's a kind of total war game in space set between episodes 4 and 6. In the main mode called Galactic Conquest, you manage your empire on a galactic scale, but ground and space battles unfold in proper real-time strategy engagements. The biggest difference is that Empire at War also operates in possible real-time at the management level, not in turns. Furthermore, movement on the campaign map is more restricted due to the space connections. On the planets you control, you build structures. This could be a mine that generates daily credits in addition to the planet's tax revenue, but it can also be defensive measures like planetary shields and turrets. If you build barracks and factories, this allows you to construct infantry and vehicles on the campaign map and also offers you advantages during the defense of a planet, as these buildings are then usable along with garrison units. This alone is a clever trick because the infrastructure directly influences your planet's defensive capabilities. If you want to build a lot of mines in one location, the planet should ideally have a decent garrison or a fleet in orbit. By mostly getting rid of active base building during battles, Empire at War ensures that your strategic options in these engagements, at least in Galactic Conquest, depend on your decisions made on the campaign map. This in turn allows you to focus entirely on the combat itself. Only a few neutral buildings and these construction sites for additional defensive turrets are still relevant. However, if you want to use these or your training facilities, you'll need credits in your account, and if you've spent everything on the galactic level beforehand, you might be out of luck. If, on the other hand, you play a single skirmish and multiplayer, the entire campaign overlay is naturally absent. There, you increase your income by capturing build sites and constructing mines or resource depots. Otherwise, it's primarily about correctly utilizing your unit's abilities and strengths. Many basic units have strong counter properties. For example, the Rebel Alliance rocket infantry quickly dismantles Imperial walkers into scrap metal and doesn't even suffer significant losses if they're behind sandbags or adopt the cover stance, which significantly increases their defense value at the cost of movement speed. And these TIE Maulers here, while not very durable, can simply run over infantry and initiate a self-destruct sequence with considerable AoE damage. Empire at War also heavily limits the number of unit squads you can have on the battlefield simultaneously. The rest wait in reserve and can be called in at these control points if you lose a squad in combat. And because these control points also increase your unit limit, at least in the campaign, they are obviously important. So if you have several such points, you can not only call in reinforcements more freely on the map, but also more of them. So through subtleties like these, dynamics are created on the battlefield, leading to ever-changing game outcomes, and obviously this provides a lot of fun. Upgrading your technology level also unlocks more powerful units that can turn the tide of battle in an instant, just like a cleverly called-in airstrike or powerful heroes who either bring very specialized abilities or sweep across the map like Darth Vader, acting as a one-man army. On top of that, maps often differ greatly in layout or offer local special units that can be recruited. So while the core gameplay is kept relatively relatively simple and largely avoids extensive base building, the possible courses of action are diverse, especially in the Galactic Civil War, where a one battle by no means decides the war. And just as important as strong ground troops in Star Wars are, of course, the starships. If a planet has a fleet in orbit, it must be cleared before an invasion can begin. Then, of course, battles happen between X-Wings and TIE fighters, massive Star Destroyers and frigates. In addition to its flair, the combat system also impresses here with special abilities, counter properties, powerful space stations, and above all, modular ship designs. You can target the engine, the shield generator, the hangar, or laser batteries. Really cool stuff. And visually, there's a lot to offer when you consider when this game actually came out. In the accompaniment of characteristic Star Wars sounds, you have powerful explosions and even ship models that show the degree of destruction. And you can view all this, as well as ground battles, from a dedicated cinematic camera. Invasions, space battles, special operations with individual heroes, and empire management are then combined in the 3 campaigns. These essentially function like the Galactic Conquest mode, only here the story takes you by the hand more strongly. While you don't have to adhere to the intended progression, you can't really deviate completely from it. For example, the first missions provide a relatively rigid framework and, for instance, lock off more distant planets. Research is also tied to the progression here, so as a small rebel cell, you can't really deploy powerful Mon Calamari star cruisers right away. The campaigns are accompanied by briefings and occasionally by short in-game cutscenes. All of these are really well voiced, and it's pretty close to the original Star Wars films. In the Rebel campaign, you naturally follow the Alliance, which tries to sabotage Emperor's plans and ultimately destroy the Death Star. On the Imperial side, you strive for the opposite and can do more than just blow up Alderaan into pieces. And in the Forces of Corruption expansion, included with both the Steam and GOG versions of the game, you take control of the criminal syndicate of underworld boss Tiber Zan, who wants to rob the Emperor himself to undermine the galaxy through corruption. This third faction comes with its own unique units and gameplay mechanics, primarily aimed at allowing you to grow stronger without necessarily conquering a planet. Empire at War is quite challenging, especially on hard difficulty, where you really have to be careful what you do with your units, and that brings us to the game's biggest problems, which weren't a highlight even in 2006 and are even more noticeable today. The unit AI is quite poor. With a mix of terrible pathfinding, forgetfulness regarding commands, and annoying collision issues with unit models, ground battles in particular can quickly become frustrating, especially if the enemy deals a lot of AoE damage. While infantry sometimes take agonizingly long to take damage, they fall like flies to artillery bombardment. If you're not paying attention or can't convince your units quickly enough to actually take the path you're giving them, your army is doomed. For me, this is by far the most significant reason why I eventually lose some motivation to play this game further and would love to get a proper sequel. However, that's not currently on the table, and so it's up to the fans to keep Empire at War alive. And actually, they're doing it quite brilliantly within what is physically possible. Countless mods expand the game in every conceivable way or completely overhaul it to, for example, shift the setting to the Clone Wars. Some mods only improve the economic mechanics, while others massively expand the unit list. Among the most well-known mods are Republic at War, Throne's Revenge, Fall of the Republic, and Awakening of the Rebellion or Awakening of the Clone Wars. Obviously, there is more than that, but if you'd like to give them a try, make sure to start looking with those I just mentioned. I gotta say, Star Wars games used to be really cool and pretty varied. There's also a video on Knights of the Old Republic on the channel if you'd like to take a look. It's not that there are currently no good Star Wars games. I really like the Jedi series from Respawn. Recently, Battlefront 2 is getting a resurgence of interest, and this year, Zero Company was announced, a single-player turn-based tactics game set in the Clone Wars that hopefully will be a good one. So maybe you have some good memories of Empire at War that you'd like to share. Did you play it back then, or maybe you still play it now? Any good mods you'd recommend to the players who'd like to give this game a try right now? Make sure to share in the comments. Thank you for watching. Take care.